Now we're getting reports of an explosion in Kilis near the Turkish border with Syria. It's believed that several people have been killed after a mortar was fired across the border. And in Syria, a number of people are still missing following a raid by Daesh. The terror group seized 400 civilians in the west of the city of Deir, Ezzor. 150 more were murdered. That's according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. It's believed that those targeted were all families of Syrian regime soldiers. While Daesh is making gains in Deir Ezzor, it is struggling on its northern fronts. To the north, they're now fighting 3 separate battles. Daesh have had a strong presence in Aleppo and Raqqa provinces since January 2014. 2 significant towns for them are Al-Bab and Manbij, but there are reports that Daesh is now evacuating fighters from these towns. Syrian regime forces have travelled from the south and hit Daesh fighters in Al-Bab. Meanwhile, the Kurdish YPG group came from the east and struck Daesh in Manbij. And Turkmen fighters travelled south from an area near Al-Bayli at the Turkish border to challenge Daesh fighters there. Daesh is sending its fighters to Raqqa, the group's self-declared capital. If Al-Bab and Manbij fall, that means the group will no longer have a stronghold in the Aleppo province. Well, TRT World, Soraya Lenny joins us now to help us understand this latest offensive by Daesh. Soraya, good to see you there. So, what do we know, first of all, about this breaking news from Turkey's border with Syria and this attack in Kilis?
All right, well, at the moment, we don't know whether it was intentional or it was an accident, because obviously what's happening across the border in Syria is you have Daesh fighting rebel groups. And in this fighting, sometimes we've seen that it's spilled across into Turkey, as we saw in July, on July 23rd, when a Turkish soldier was actually shot by a sniper while manning a checkpoint there in Kilis. So what we know now is a mortar has hit an area it's a very small town, I will point out, very agricultural, but it looks like it's hit a school. So it looks like the injuries are coming from that school. We've seen vision of young kids and teenagers running out of that school in a panic, and they've been taken to hospital as well. But we're getting more information as the minutes tick by. We know there are at least 4 injuries, but we can't confirm whether or not anyone's died yet.
Okay, let's cross over the border into Syria and talk about things there, because obviously it's a very fluid situation in terms of territory at the moment. What exactly is the latest in Deir Ezzor? Do we know?
Well, in Deir Ezzor, we've seen that there's been intensive fighting between Daesh and the government. Now, Daesh controls most of that area. However, very significantly, the government still controls an air base there. They still have some very important pockets of territory. However, we've seen in the last, say, 48 hours, Daesh has actually managed to take back some territory from the Syrian government. And that means once they've gone in there are members of the Syrian government supporters, their families, who are no longer protected. So we've seen, according to reports from Syrian activists, that Daesh has seized around 400 civilians. It's believed they're the family members of soldiers fighting for the government. They've been moved to the west of the city. We don't know what's happened to them, whether or not they've been executed, which is the style of Daesh to do, or whether or not they're still alive.
And what's the latest as well coming out of Aleppo then?
There's also, of course, a fight in Aleppo, as it is, of course, throughout the country. Now, Daesh is really under it in Aleppo from many different fronts, many different groups. The Syrian government, YPG, the pro-Kurdish fighters, Turkmen as well. Now they're all, and of course the Free Syrian Army and other rebel groups, they're losing ground. They've lost ground in the northeast to the government. They've lost ground in the north to other rebels, and that means these rebel groups are really cutting off the main areas and really tightening the net around Daesh there. So what they're doing is sending their more high-profile fighters, Western fighters. They're more expensive, of course. They pay them a lot more money. They're sending them out of the city, and they're sending them to Raqqa, which is the so-called stronghold of Daesh, which I might point out, since summer, they've also been losing territory there as well. So there are a couple of significant battles going on in Syria right now.
Okay, Soraya, thank you for keeping across all of this for us. Thank you very much.